All right, everyone, are you ready for some Loki action? We are ready to go with the first episode of Loki. It's called Glorious Purpose. After stealing the Tesseract in Avengers Endgame, Loki lands before the Time Variance Authority. We've obviously seen the trailers. I know my fellow Marvelers are out there. Thank you so much for joining in. Hi, Shonen Otaku. The episode is definitely up and it's a 50-minute runtime. I have just played it and here we go. All right. So I'm guessing that it's going to start with a callback to the Avengers Endgame scene in which Loki actually took the Tesseract away from there we go, New York City. And it is 2012. The Stark Tower is in disarray, and the Avengers are in control of Loki. He is doing that imitating Captain America thing. The Tesseract is taken in by Robert Downey Jr. playing the iconic Iron Man. Yes, Anas, the episode is definitely up. All right, so this is the scene which we saw in Avengers Endgame, in which Ant-Man and Iron Man and Captain America have gone to New York in 2012. Ant-Man pushes the suitcase towards Iron Man. He picks it up, but there's Hulk coming down the too many stairs. There we go. It's a ditto repeat of the scene in Avengers Endgame. Hulk says, "No stairs." And Loki has picked up the Tesseract and, unnoticed by everyone, vanished. All right, we are into the proper Marvel opening. And as the Marvel flip book opening comes up, let me say thanks. Anas, yes, it is up. Please check out Disney Hotstar. I'm watching it right now. I don't know if I can't show you, of course, but if you can see in the reflection of my phone, look, there it is. The Marvel logo is up. And it's a very greenish Loki themed logo this time. Marvel obviously does a great job of dropping subtle hints into their logo. Not subtle, but obviously marking it with the Loki motif, the green Loki motif. All right, we are in a desert environment. A dewdrop is hanging from a rock, and a small insect crawls over a desert. I think I can see a little settlement in the distance there. It's the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. So the trailer and everybody who analyzed the trailer, me included, were right in saying that it is the Gobi Desert. And there we go. Loki pulls off kind of an Iron Man entrance. If you remember, when Iron Man escaped the terrorist encampment from his first Mark I suit, he kind of punched the eject button, so to speak, and he had landed in a desert almost like this. And there we go, right out of the trailer. A trio of Mongolians have chanced upon Loki. He is quick to get up on his feet. Oh, there are 5 of them. And he introduces himself as Loki of Asgard, and he is burdened with glorious purpose. So the name drop of the title has happened like 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes into the 3 minutes into the episode. The TVA officers teleport in through a door, and there we go. It seems like there is a standard sequence violation, and they are tracking the variant. So Loki is the variant who has come into who has broken the timeline by stealing the Tesseract, and the Time Variance Authority police are there to catch him. He doesn't know who they are, of course, but they've given him an ultimatum to surrender. Let's see if he pulls off any of his Loki mischief or whether he is just playing for time. But I think he is in over his head because the Time Variance Authority is not someone to be meddled with. All right. I think that was a mistake. Oh, and there we go. Loki gets his face smashed in slow motion with the rippling of his cheeks. So Tom Hiddleston, of course, is taken in by the Time Variance Authority. So they have put him in 1/16th slow motion, and there we go. The band is around his neck, and he is a prisoner of the Time Variance Authority. All right. Reset the timeline is what the leader of the TVA says, and picks up the Tesseract. All right. So let's see. They've set a device down in the place where Loki had landed in the desert. And let's see what the device does. The Mongolians are just watching on in fascination, as are we. And there we go through the portal and into the TVA. It's a very orange themed, retro sort of look with a spiral ceiling, and the computer on the desk looks like one of those old iMacs, the roundish ones. Okay, Loki tries to make a run for it, and because of the collar around his neck, he is instantly called back to the side of the TVA police power woman. All right. I see that recognizable faces are starting off right away, removing the Avengers in the first scene, of course. So that first scene was already a repeat of the Avengers Endgame scene in which Loki stole the Tesseract and teleported away. So from Mongolia, he has been captured by the TVA, and now he's been put inside a lift, which has some sort of a contraption. Oh, it's a robot. And the robot is trying to toy with Loki. Very retro robot with a CRT display screen. And I think it's trying to take off its. So Loki says he's wearing fine Asgardian leather. And there we go. It's completely disintegrated by the robot. The robot has removed his clothes. And as he falls through a trapdoor, he is already clothed in the TVA prisoner sort of attire. And there we go. This is the part from one of the trailers in which he is asked to sign everything that he has said up to that point. And there is a difference because as soon as he said the first what, that got printed out as well. And then he says the line that was shown in the trailer, which is, "This is absurd." Okay, so he signs that stack of papers. Again, very old looking technology. It's that dot matrix printer, which is printing out everything he has said. He falls through another trapdoor, and I think he's going to go through a sort of a weapons checkpost. Oh, so apparently he does call a soul, and he possesses one to his knowledge. All right, so he's getting checked for a soul maybe, but let's see what this metal detector sort of thing does. And Loki asks if he was a robot and didn't know it, what would happen? So this is kind of one of the things explode in Blade Runner, in which the replicants don't know whether they are androids or not, replicants or not. So Loki passes through, I guess. There is a Polaroid sort of thing, and it gives off his temporal aura. So I guess that is something that they do at the TVA while processing new inmates. All right. So there's already another inmate going through the motions, and he's asked to take a ticket. There is a airport sort of maze of tape that we are all used to while going through the airport security lines. And he's giving the TVA police officer the evil eye, but no effect, obviously. And strolling slowly through the maze of roped off tape. And then what he says is, there is a mistake, I really shouldn't even be here. But the public service announcement about the Time Variance Authority is introduced by Miss Minutes. And she says that it's her job to catch Loki up before he stands up to trial for their crimes. So let's see what that flat disc, who was on the poster of Loki as well, says. All right, so there is apparently been a vast multiversal war, and because of that war, there was the almost total annihilation of everything. But then emerged the timekeepers, and they merged the multiverse into a single timeline, the sacred timeline. All right. So the timekeepers protect and preserve this timeline, the sacred timeline. And let's see how the multiverse that is being shown in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to play on this sacred timeline plot. Okay, so then they're describing how a variant branches off from the timeline, and if they go off too far, then there is the danger of a multiverse. All right, but to make sure that that multiverse doesn't play around too much with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as we are being shown, the TVA comes in, swoops in, and catches that variant and takes them back to the place where they had left the timeline. But since Loki has done something which is not, easily put back the way it was, that is why he's going to stand trial. And I think that is going to be the end of the Time Variance Authority advertisement, or shall I say introductory video. Yes, Shubham, it's there. Absolutely, you're right. And continuing on with what is happening at the TVA once Loki has been taken in from Mongolia, of all places, something weird awaits Loki on the other side as he starts to panic. He's looking for something in his pockets, and his ticket that was given to him is important. There we go. There's a different sort of a Loki montage. The fonts of Loki swivel around in grayscale, black and white, for those of you who don't remember or don't know what grayscale was. It was in the time of cathode ray tubes. Okay, we've shifted to France in 1549. Okay, and there was a Nexus event. There we go. Owen Wilson is on the scene. Owen Wilson is obviously playing Mobius, and he's checking out the scene. So something has been going on in 1549 France, which the TVA is exploring, and the reset charge is gone. All right. So basically, whoever it was killed some TVA personnel. It's the sixth attack that has come to their attention. All right. So let's see how Owen Wilson takes out the information from a French lady. Oh, Owen Wilson speaking French. Wow. Great. Okay. So this is a French little lady who might have seen something that has led to this attack. Okay. So he draws a stick figure of a human on his sort of tablet, and it's a sort of a icebreaker between the little lady and Owen Wilson. Oh, and when he asks who did it, she points to a stained glass window painting of what looks like Satan, the devil. Okay, so let's see. And Okay, something weird because she has apparently, the little lady, the little French lady has been given no Atharv Anil. I will not be streaming the show because that is illegal. All right, you need to go on Disney Hotstar to watch it. But yeah, so coming back to the show, they've got a bubble gum, a modern bubble gum, which says kablooey. The comic speak for an explosion. And Owen Wilson has started gathering evidence. Okay, and he's gotten information about Loki, that Loki has been apprehended. All right, here we go. We are into the trial scene of Loki. The court is in session, and Loki, Laufey's son, because of course he is a son of the frost giants, he's asked how he pleads, and he still has the ego that he is a god, and he thinks that he can kind of pull off his god power here. Guilty of being the god of mischief, he says. But let's see if him being the god of mischief gets him off on the TVA's penal system. Okay, so he says he's not guilty and he blames the Avengers. Okay, which is technically correct because if they would not have traveled back in time, he would not have gotten the Tesseract. Okay, so let's see if we can see how this goes down for Loki. And Owen Wilson has joined him in the trial room, not joined him, but come in to sit in on his trial. And so straight away, the judge says that what the Avengers did was supposed to happen, which means they are basically retrospecting and retrofitting the entire sacred timeline according to what Bruce Banner told the Ancient One while taking the time stone from her. That when they will replace the stones back in their original place in the timelines, the sacred timeline, as we have been informed in the TVA ad in this episode, has been restored. All right. So Loki is still trying to figure out a way to get away from his confinement, but none of his magic is going to happen. And he's trying to pull off some sort of magic like this. And it's just getting funnier by the moment. But yeah, the TVA has taken cool precautions and he has been sentenced to be reset. So let's see. It seems that the bureaucrats are going to be resetting Loki. Uh, I think it means they're going to try and place him back into the timeline from where he escaped. But Owen Wilson has risen up and he's making a case for Loki to be useful to them. And I guess this is where the real Loki series is going to begin. All right. So let's see. This is obviously going to be a pairing between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston. And by all accounts, everybody who got the preview of the first two episodes of the series was raving about how Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson are hitting it off with their cop buddy, approach. All right. So Loki is still pretty upset and he says that he's going to burn this place to the ground, but it's obviously bigger than it seems. So it's a completely sci-fi setting, and it seems like they're on a different planet altogether. But Owen Wilson tells him that even without magic, all of that they are seeing, which is a sprawling, huge I won't say city, but a place in space is how I would describe it. It looks like one of those photos that are used in the memes. Society, if you know, I'm not sure. All right. So Loki says that this place is a nightmare, and another shot from the trailer of the lift, lots of floors, and Owen Wilson introduces himself as Agent Mobius. So let's see what exposition they give for explaining how this series is going to pan out. And yep, this is going to be a start of something which is going to have a profound effect on the multiverse that is going to come up in Doctor Strange. Black Widow, which is coming up soon, is set after the events of Captain America Civil War. So I don't think that that is going to be affected pretty much by the events of this series. Still, because it's going to be time jumps and space jumps all around, anything and everything goes. So we have to be prepared for Loki to, one, pull off anything, and two, get accustomed to getting one upped by the TVA, because the TVA, it has already been shown that the TVA has complete and utter control over what Loki can do, which is nothing, as long he has that uh, collar around his neck. So now we are in that conference room style setting in which he's probably going to be shown a lot of his past to kind of let new viewers catch up on what Loki as a character is like. So he is obviously not to be trusted. That goes without saying. But Loki is also a character who made the ultimate sacrifice in Infinity War, right at the start of Infinity War, when he was trying to protect the Infinity Stone in the Tesseract from Thanos. So that was where Thanos actually snapped his neck and said, "No, no resurrections this time." So this is a very convenient turnaround, taking off from Avengers Endgame and putting Loki in a completely different setting, so that somebody can uh, come to terms with the fact that Loki is alive and well and still up to all sorts of mischief. Okay, so Owen Wilson is trying to get him on their side, and let's see if he's able to break down Loki's marvelous defenses and make him a part of the TVA timekeeping unit. Okay, so Mobius says that he's seen many dangerous variants, and compared to them, Loki is just a pussycat. Okay, so there's a bit of a banter going on between the two, and it's obvious that what Loki is going to do at the end is agree to go along with Owen Wilson's plan. But he says that he wants to be king because he was born to be king. All right. So I'm guessing that he assumes that he wants to be king of Asgard, uh, Midgard. Okay. So he says that he wanted to be king of Earth. Okay. So Mobius is kind of questioning his motives, questioning his ambition, and he's basically downplaying all of his ambitions. He's saying that if you want to be king of Earth, if you want to be king of the nine realms, the king of Asgard, the king of space, then that is all very nice. But what is his? What is the thing that keeps him going? What is his motive behind it? And I guess this is where we start to dig a little deeper into Loki's psyche and how it's going to pan out for his role in this series. Okay, so we've already got a bit of uh, discourse going on around how there is a fork in every road, and let me get that right. Yep, there is a fork in every road, and yet the wrong path is always taken. So Loki is apparently not completely convinced by the totality of the timeline being sacred, because he's saying that choice matters. Whereas if we take the sacred timeline thing as true, then it means that choice or free will does not play a part, because the timeline will go as it should. So let's see if they control the future, the past. Obviously, the future seems to be a bit of a stretch to control, but let's see. Okay, something is being loaded, and okay, graphic coming up of New York City again, I think. Let's see if it's a replay of the Avengers Endgame. Okay, so I think it's the first Avengers shot of Loki looking up at the Avengers when they have cornered and captured him. And he says, if it's all right with you, I'll have that drink now, which Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man had offered him. Okay. All right, Alpha Plays. I'm not going to show the video because that is illegal, as I keep saying again and again. I don't know why people tune in thinking that it's going to be a stream of the show. If you want to see the show, you have to go on Disney Plus Hotstar in India and Disney Plus elsewhere around the world. All right. So he killed Phil Coulson, and that is also shown to him. He seems to be feeling a little guilty, and he is accused of being a murderer by Mobius. And let's see. Yep, he killed that person whose eye they needed to break into a vault. Uh, and again, he says that I don't have to play this game. I'm a god. But obviously, the entire point of this whole discussion and this introductory sequence is to show how Loki can still be a criminal, even though he might not have been playing the part of a god when he was carrying out those killings, especially that last one of that person, that old person he had killed to get the eyeball. All right. We have played into the DB Cooper type scene, an old school airliner in which Loki is sitting, and lots of other people as well, of course. All right. So they're obviously trying to uh, showcase how Loki had been mischievous way before we actually got to see him in the Avengers Infinity Saga, and he's playing some sort of a trick with the air hostess. Okay, and she says, Mr. Cooper. So yeah, he's playing the role of the DB Cooper famous mystery, in which DB Cooper had a lot of cash with him and apparently hijacked a plane and jumped out of it, and nothing was ever heard about him again. So it's one of those mysteries that has apparently never been solved. And after holding the plane ransom with a bomb threat, he gathers up a lot of cash from the air hostess once again. And I guess he is going to take off. So this is that part coming up from the trailer in which he's beamed up by Heimdall and Thor in Asgard through the Bifrost. Okay. Even Owen Wilson says, I can't believe you were DB Cooper. So he was young and lost a bet to Thor. Okay. Okay. So he says that the timekeepers were unaffected by the DB Cooper play and all the mischief that he has done earlier in the life that Loki has had. And it's apparent that the timekeepers have had an eye on not just Loki but the entire multiverse. So I guess their entire point is to keep the multiverse in a tight hold and not let variants mess up the timeline. Okay, so finally Loki shows some frustration and asks, "What do you want?" So this is the beginning of the partnership, I will say. And Owen Wilson says all he wants is to understand the fearsome god of mischief better, deeper. What makes Loki tick? So let's see. Loki says it's an illusion. Okay. So a little bit of banter, which is playing out to be uh, more of more about the acting prowess of Loki and Mobius rather than showing too much action right from the beginning. Okay, we are into another replay of Loki, and when he was lording it over the people of Earth, right, to announce that he has become their king or their lord, that is exactly when he was at the peak of his, I'll say, his hubris. All right, but all these things are just basically serving to irritate Loki. And I guess that is the entire point of Mobius showing him all these things, because he wants to make sure that Loki understands that there is quite a lot of irresponsibility in his behavior, right? So now I guess we are seeing the part of his incarceration on Asgard. So when he was brought in chains to Asgard and kept in a cell, in a jail cell, Owen Wilson says that the TVA knows their entire life and what it's supposed to be like. So that is kind of a hint that they know the future as well. But I guess as the series progresses, we are going to come to know more about that. Loki is obviously very fond of his mother, played by Renee Russo, and they are playing that game between mother and son of knowing how the future would play out and yet not being able to avoid the death of his mother. So Mobius is showing Loki all these things to upset him and to break him down, to get him to understand that he has made mistakes in the past and this might be his chance to set them right. So if Loki is able to work with Mobius, then he might be able to atone for some of his sins, so to speak. All right. So I guess the entire outcome of this full conversation was going to be that Loki understands that he doesn't have any option except for working with the TVA to correct the timeline as it's supposed to be. And I think it's going to play into the Hi Savita, and it's going to play into the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline. The first incident in which we saw Owen Wilson, the France incident in 1500s, is apparently going to be the bigger variant, the villainous variant who's playing around with timelines the way he shouldn't. And I think Loki is going to help Mobius in correcting that timeline and in catching that variant. Okay, so Hunter B15 is back and there is a situation. So I think this is a setup for some sort of an action sequence. All right. Okay, so Mobius, aka Owen Wilson IRL, has been called away, and now they are having a discussion. Hunter and Mobius are having a discussion, and by the time that discussion is over, Loki has once again tried to make a run for it, and he has got the time looper, which resets them in the short term. Okay, so Loki is starting to figure out how the time looper works, and the person who was at the reception of the TVA is taking a tray of food or something somewhere, and I guess he's going to follow him into some sort of a office complex. Okay, I will have to find out who the actor is who plays Casey, and he doesn't have any idea what a fish is. Okay, so these sort of dialogue jokes in which a person who has always worked behind a desk will not know what a fish is what sets Marvel apart from the competition, DC, because DC seems to take things a little too seriously. Okay, and he opens a drawer and just takes out the Tesseract, and that drawer has quite a few Infinity Stones. And he says some of the guys use them as paperweights. So this is where they are kind of showing the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, as being so powerful that they can kind of play around with Infinity Stones as if they were trinkets, right? So this is basically a way to show that the universe that we saw in the Infinity Saga, right up till Avengers Endgame, was just one timeline, or rather a few timelines, or that were part of a much bigger timeline. And because they are part of a much bigger timeline, I think Loki is starting to get the realization that TVA is indeed the greatest power in the universe, the Marvel universe. Okay, so just as Hunter and Mobius catch up with Loki in the Secretary Bay, he resets himself into the conference room in which Mobius and him were having a chat. And now that he's alone, he might, I have a feeling he might rewind a few things. The Avengers are still on the big screen. So let's see what he thinks about them. I guess he's going to play around with the cute looking round computer. Looks like it would fit right into Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And yep, like I said, he's rewinding and playing around until he rewinds to the part about which he feels most guilty. So, getting Loki to actually uh, convince himself to help out the TVA is what this first episode is going to be about. I think there is still 12 minutes to go, and he is getting all sentimental about Odin, calling him his son, not just him, but Thor as well in Thor Ragnarok, which was Taika Waititi's awesome max contribution to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I have reviewed it obviously many years ago. You can go ahead and check that out once you subscribe. But fellow Marvelers, this first episode is very low on action. So it's low key action, but high key emotion. All right. So with that, let's see how the last 10 minutes of this episode goes. And here is his ultimate sacrifice scene in which he tries to stab Thanos in the throat, but Thanos uses the stones that he already has to control and snap his neck. So, this is a regular motif in science fiction and in uh, fantasy that a person sees themselves dying. And this is Loki watching himself dying at the hands of Thanos, snapping his neck on the Asgardian ship. And he says, "You will never be a god." So, that line, which he uses on himself so much, that I am a god, I am the god of mischief, you can't do this to a god, is kind of what he had said to Thanos. So, as this episode is drawing to a close, I'm pretty sure Mobius and Hunter are going to come charging into the doors at any second. The end. Okay, so I guess that was the end of the reel. End of file. All right, so the file was on a magnetic tape, the kind that old school music used to be recorded on. 5 track like Pink Floyd, not just Pink Floyd, but Pink Floyd is obviously the most famous proponent of 5 tracks and 8 tracks to combine their music. Okay, so he name drops the title of the episode again, Glorious Purpose. Hunter has come into the room, and it seems that Loki is facing up to her, trying to get himself killed, maybe because he is so. Oh, he has pulled a switcheroo on Hunter B-15. He got the control chip, deactivated his collar, put the collar around Hunter, and looped her back somewhere. Okay, and now he's playing with her. So you remember the first generation iPods in which you could use the scroll wheel like this, like this. That is kind of how he's playing around with Hunter B-15. He's going all ape SHIT on the time looper, and Casey, the desk guy, is telling other officials how he was held up by Loki and he forced him to give the Tesseract. Hunter has been looped back to the reception area of the TVA. Loki is still holding the Tesseract that he got from Casey. So he's kind of bummed about it because it's been an emotional ride. And now Mobius is back with a flare stick that apparently kills variants. And Loki says that he can't go back to his timeline. I'm guessing that this is because he's feeling the guilt of what all he has done over the course of his life. And he says that he doesn't enjoy hurting people. So this is where we start to see that duality of Loki's character. He wants to prove something to Odin. He wants to prove something over Thor. He wants to achieve something that Thor, etc., have never done. And at the same time, he is conjuring illusions and playing tricks to inspire fear in other people. But to what end? And he says he is a villain. But Mobius says that's not how I see it. So that again brings me back to the point of the main villain of this series being the person who's playing around in was playing around in France 1500s, and obviously they are going to play with that concept. Okay, so Loki has finally given up on the escape plans, Shout out to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone for their escape plan movie from a prison, which was kind of like Raft in Captain America Civil War and in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I'm not going to be calling it the Falcon and the Winter Soldier anymore because obviously Sam Wilson is the new Captain America. All right, we are in Salina, Oklahoma in 1858. Okay, this is also part of the trailer, and the TVA police have portaled in through their doorway. There is some sort of an high-tech shovel shoved inside the ground, which is from the third century millennium, third millennium, and oil has been spilt around. So what they are thinking is that somebody stumbled upon a time machine and used it to dig up oil in Oklahoma. But it's the hooded figure we have seen in the trailers, and he holds up that lamp and sets fire to the oil. So I guess this is when the Minutemen are the Time Variance Authority's police, and they are the ones who portal in and try and get all the timelines that are divergent back into the sacred timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this person, whoever is the villain in this series, the hooded figure, is collecting reset charges. Even in France, they had stolen the reset charge. So they wait for the Minutemen. It's directed by Kate Herron. The end of the episode has come up. It's written by Michael Waldron, created for television by Michael Waldron as well, and based on the Marvel comics. So I'm going to pause on the name of the executive producer, who we all know, Kevin Feige. Okay, so the first episode was all about setting Loki up as a character who does not believe that he is a criminal. He is, make no mistake about it, he has murdered many innocents and he has done a lot of stuff which paints him as a villain. No denying the fact that he has caused excessive amounts of destruction and loss of fictional life, but fictional life nonetheless. Okay, so takeaways from the first episode, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause my GarageBand. That was my self composition there, and I will just record a minute. All right, thank you so much for watching, and looking forward to episode 2 in just a week's time. Or who knows if Disney Plus drops a surprise and lets us watch the second episode right away. Fellow Marvelers, make sure that you do subscribe, and looking forward to many more fun moments with Loki. Here's saying Excelsior.